And I wasn't even gonna look at the video, that he has to lose the paranoia. And I had actually enjoyed talking to him. So much for that. That's word for word what I wrote. I don't know. Unprovoked. Just like it to go away.
Anything else?
No, unless you have something else you want to add.
No, I believe you. I mean, when I heard that, I was like, I can't believe someone would go there and do that, you know? So, whatever. I mean,
It's, I don't think I'd make it this far if I indulge in that kind of, just. So, can't pretend it never happened, but, don't leave me alone in a room with Mr. Kurtop and there'll be words. I would hope for an apology, but I doubt that'll happen.
Anything else, Mark?
no, I mean, I'm just hearing all third party, so.
So there's two sides to every story, Betsy, and we've heard both sides now, and your credibility and your reputation precede you. There seems to be a perception that was represented at the last select board meeting that the town has an agenda against farmers and against businesses. And I will categorically state once again that it's absolutely false. If you follow the town ordinances and work with the town, we will do everything we can to support you and ensure your success. There will be no cloak and dagger behind the scenes activities taken by this town. It's that assumption or presumption or perception of such an agenda is patently false. And there has been numerous misrepresentations over the past 2 to 3 years, contrary to what the town's policies are. And I will as strenuously as possible fight that misperception and work to ensure that people in this town know that the town is here to support you if you comply with the policies and the procedures of the town. And all those policies and procedures that exist in the town have gone through the proper protocol. They've been examined in depth and detail by the planning board, by the select board, input from the ZBA, input from the Conservation Commission. They've been reviewed in detail, and then they put up for a vote before the citizens of the town. And all those ordinances in place have been affirmed by the town. And I will go back to that old saw. You have 3 choices. You can comply with the ordinances in the town. You can break the ordinances in the town at your own peril, or you can work to change the ordinances in the town. So any allegations contrary are absolutely false. I'm sure it's been rather challenging. Is that sufficient enough?
That's fair.
Okay.
This is a first. And I got thick skin, but this one was really up to lunch. But
I thank you for coming in and verbalizing your
thank you.
position, shall we say, and version of events. And again, I find you have credibility as to these issues, as has been established by your service to this town for 18 years on the board, and then the $1,000 you earned at the State House, plus mileage. So,
Thank you for letting me out here.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else that anybody else wants to add? If not, we'll consider this matter closed. Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to the water department permit. So what's happened here is that the wastewater treatment plant needs a new roof. Some people say roof. They need a new roof, and they're asking the select board to waive the permit fee for that. Before I go any further, Wendy, John, one of you like to speak?
I can speak.
Oh, by the way, something I forgot to do, my apologies. Bobby Harmon, Chair of the Select Board.
Or in the town, Steve.
Mark Casper.
And if I can ask you when you speak, please do so with sufficient volume for the microphone to make Keisha's life just a little bit easier.
Sure, that's good. So my name's John Hayden. I'm a water commissioner, one of three, the Newfields Village Water and Sewer District. Our sewer plant has been in need of roof replacement for some time. We budgeted for that for this year. Budget was approved. We're moving forward with getting the contractor into the work. Contractor noted that a building permit is required by the town for projects such as this. Wendy actually had a conversation. Wendy Chase is the administrative assistant for the water and sewer department. She had a conversation with Larry Shaw about it. Larry said he didn't have anything to inspect with regard to roof replacement. And so the commissioners have come to the Board of Selectmen to ask if they would be willing to waive the permit fee for the water and sewer district.
I spoke with Larry today, Mr. Shaw today. He had absolutely no issue. He was just hesitant until he received guidance from the select board. And in his usual protocol where a government building is, the fee is waived. In that case, do you have anything else, Mark?
Okay.
In that case, I will make a motion that we waive the fee for the water sewer department or the sewer department for their new roof. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Is that a flat roof on that? Is
I'm sorry.
that a flat roof on that?
It is. Yeah. It's
Rubber.
rubber and stone.
And we knock off another X in the block.
Mhm.
Ex officio events. So I went to the planning board meeting last week. The discussion at the planning board meeting was, Sean McGowan showed up in regards to Bingham Junction. He had a barn that he proposed that was going to be in Newmarket. He wants to move it into Newfields because he has better solar array performance. And that went through the select board. Did you guys sign off on that, John? I don't remember.
So again, John Hayden, I'm also a member of the planning board. The discussion that night was preliminary. So it was a non-binding discussion between Mr. McGowan and the Newfields Planning Board. As you stated, he was hoping to relocate his building, same exact size, no changes in the building. Just if he moved it to the location that he desires, it would be in Newfields, where the entirety of his project prior for buildings was going to be in Newmarket. So there was some discussion about building use and other things that it seemed to me that John needed to make some decisions about, whether he was going to come back into the planning board for an actual site review or just move forward with a building permit, which he would be entitled to do, provided there was no change to the structure.
So that'll be up. So that's currently in work then.
We, as far as I know, we've not heard back from Sean a decision of whether he is going to move forward with a permit or come back to work for site review. So
That was the update as far as, that was a majority of the evening. The other thing that was also discussed was the mobile station and their lighting. The letter has not been sent. Hopefully at the time of that meeting, it had not been sent yet. But Glenn said he would jump right on that after discussing it. And then the last work is the CIP is still in work, and hopefully we can get that done in a rather expeditious manner. And that covered the gist of the planning board meeting. Mark, what did you have for the Conservation Commission on?
They rescheduled for next month.
One of the things that came up during the discussion at the planning board with Sean, they were talking about the abutting lands there and trails onto the access. And it was mentioned that that was a very good subject matter for the Conservation Commission to address.
Okay.
And so
I'm
I
sure you
am
can bring
not
that
as
up.
familiar with that as you are, John, or other folks are. But I think that's something that would be valid for you guys to look into on the Conservation Commission. John, didn't you think there was like trail options in there and access issues?
So currently, there's a more or less landlocked parcel, which is fairly sizable, if I'm not mistaken, maybe in the 60-acre range. It is owned by the railroad.
Oh.
They apparently have no intention of doing anything with it. Mr. McGowan disclosed at the planning board meeting that he had discussed options with them about purchasing it and was told they didn't have any interest. It would make sense if the railroad were amicable to having a discussion with the town to combine it, since it abuts the Earl Smith woodlot, which is owned by the Society of Protection of Nature Forest, which has a series of trail networks within that parcel, which is a 40 some odd acre parcel. And the industrial, I believe it's owned industrial railroad property abuts the Rockingham Rail Trail. So it could be a pretty significant portion of parcel to have in conservation and potentially for some trails, a lot more sizable, a lot closer to downtown.
Yeah. So you're saying the railroad had already said they're not interested, or?
They said that to Mr. McGowan knows what he
Oh, I see.
said at the planning board meeting. You know, can only assume he made that offer as a private individual, which, you know, may or may not be a difference if it were
Through an official, yeah.
the society, or I don't know.
Okay, so maybe we could, when we talk to Concom, they might have some connections, or what do you suggest?
Why don't you explore it at the next Conservation Commission meeting and see if you can maybe start this project rolling and see if there's some way to move forward on it. And do some exploratory inquiries as to what's going on. Sean did give me a point of contact that night in regards to another issues I had going with CSX. That gentleman is no longer working at Rockingham Junction, but he rolled me over to another gentleman who's involved there. And I did talk to them, and it's astounding to me how receptive CSX is to communicating as opposed to Pan Am. Which when you called Pan Am, you got a hello click, and that was the end of the conversation. But CSX, from senior management for the Northeast region, who I've been dealing with, down to the local folks, are good. Now I'm going to segue here. Two things. New road bridge. I talked to the state. Levi Byers is the gentleman's name in charge of getting new road bridge repaired. He said they'd had a dry spell where they had not communicated with CSX. That afternoon, I received an email from CSX, my point of contact at CSX, that Hobie, I've been trying to get a hold of the state and I'm getting no response. As soon as they give us estimates, we'll cut the check. And so they can fix the bridge. CSX accepts full responsibility for all the damage and they're willing to fix it, but they just have to, how should I put this tactfully? Incentivize the state to begin meet their responsibilities to repair the bridge. So I sent an email, both CC, CSX, point of contact, Devin Fuchs and Maurice O'Connell, as well as Levi Byers, that this is an issue for the town, for traffic, for safety planning in case of an issue on 108, and that we needed to get that bridge open, Ricky Tick. The other thing I talked to them about, and I'm going to segue into another aspect, Ray, Deb, have they moved those ties yet? Negative? Okay, I will make a point of following up on that because I called them. They left about 36 new ties right abutting Valenzio's, so they get to smell the creosote when they're sitting out back.
I can smell it in my house too. It's down the lake.
Well, that's the first time you've mentioned me, Ken, so I'll mention you too.
Yes, there's another contributor to the ammunition you have, that the smell is bothering your residents.
All right. The other thing for people's information is, and Bill Meserve talked about this the other day in a conversation that we were having. They're starting in Durham, working their way towards us. And they've got a company in there that's picking up all the old ties, because if you look down at the junction, there's probably, God, it's gotta be 40 feet high and probably what, 300 feet long of old ties.
Yeah.
They're picking them up and they're taking them away and they're chipping them. So they are working the process to get rid of the old ties. So it won't be like Pan Am where they had ties scattered from one end to the other. A couple weeks ago, I walked from the Exeter line to Rockingham Junction, and it's pretty well cleaned up of all the old detritus along both sides of the track. And the new ties basically start at Squamset Street, and they've got the piles there, but everything down to the Exeter line is cleaned up. And I will follow up on that this week, and I'll put a push on them for both you, Ken, and for you, Ray, and Deb. Okay. All right, so that covers that. Main Street Safety Group Select Board Representative. Chief, would you like to speak to this initiative?
I brought this last week, a couple weeks. This has been right in front of the board. Back a couple of months ago, there were some concerned residents along the Main Street corridor, adjacent cross streets. Have some concerns and suggestions. We did meet with them a couple of weeks ago. A lot of it is at the mercy of the state, the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. Since it is a state road, it's limited on what we can do. And there was a lot of questions and suggestions they had that night. Having representation from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation to answer those questions and lead us in the right direction on certain things that their concerns. So I think moving forward, I think having a future meeting, which that's what I think is good for the concerned residents, as well as the Department of Transportation, and then obviously the police department, is have a select board representative there, because there may be some suggestions that the state may have that ultimately is not just up to me, but it's up to the Board of Selectmen regarding that. And I would rather have the select board representative be part of that meeting instead of playing catch up as we move down the line. I think it's just better to start day one, just like we met, 2-3 years ago with all the stakeholders pertaining to the school.
All right, Kat,
I think it's a good idea.
Mark?
Yeah, that's, was that something that you were discussing before last meeting, or?
No, we really didn't get into it. They had been here prior to us.
Right.
And we tossed them out at 1840 and 640 because we had
Yeah. And I brought up that I would like a select board representative. I think since there were only 2 members, I think somebody made a representative.
To put it on the agenda.
Continue to our next meeting.
Yeah, okay.
In that case, because Kat, you initiated the conversation on this, I'd make a motion that Kat be the representative to the committee.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's a topic dear to my heart.
Sir?
Is there a group, so there's not a select board member, Ray Longfield, 30 Main Street. There's not a select board member, whatever this group, the way it states in Main Street Safety Group Select Board representative. You just voted to have them. So if you have a bunch of Main Street residents that are concerned, don't forget the outskirts.
Exactly. And I agree completely.
Whatever you do here affects everybody in both ends. Besides the local thing.
And you bring up a really good point. And one of the things I think we have talked about is sometimes the speeding drivers are our neighbors. They are people who live and work in town. And so we are benefiting by all working together. You don't have to live here on Main Street to share these concerns, and these same safety issues exist in pockets all over town. So it is important to include everybody and invite everybody to share their concerns.
Correct. My biggest concern is the stop sign. First of all, I don't town with like the market flashing lights, signs of I want it to stay the way it was, for the most part. But if you put stop signs here, we already sometimes in summer afternoons can't get to our driveway. And that would also create the village to be a cut through, which people will do. And the speeding, I get it, I completely get it, you see it every day. But it's not a Newfields issue, it's a national issue, right? It's just happening everywhere all the time. And I don't want to create other issues and unsafe stuff. And I understand some of the people's concerns, but 30 miles an hour might be too slow for this road. But I like it because people go way too fast.
Sure.
But the outskirts, the other end, you know, we have a light that affects us there.
Right.
And I'm not complaining about that. But I don't want it to be blocked in both ways.
And, right, and I think when everyone gets to share these concerns, more of those rippling effects get to be brought to the surface, so everyone can hear that. That's
So we've taken care of that. Any other? comments?
Gonna be like post regularly scheduled meetings for this group, or is this?
How are you working it,
I
Wayne?
think as we move forward, we're at the mercy of the state, like Colby said, things are delayed with new road. I am having a very hard. Since 2 weeks ago, I have reached out to them many times and I am not connecting with the right person. I've told who those two people are. I was out of the country until last week. I'm basically left it in their hands. As you tell me, I forwarded them the email of the concerns that came from the concerned residents. Obviously, a lot of them are, other than the enforcement and the, you know, that's something that we can deal with. But as with signage, speed limit, stuff like that, I have my own, you know, I know how the state works, but I didn't want to speak to them that night. So I'm hoping they get back to us and give us a date and time, and we'll put it out. We'll shoot some an email out to them, because it just doesn't affect those 15, 20 people who were there that night. You know, this affects the whole town. So we will post on our Facebook page. We're going into a busy time, obviously on July 4th with the holiday next week. And when the state gives us a date and time, we realize it's not going to be perfect for everybody. It's going to be impossible. But we gave the one at the school board back 3 years ago. It was like at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday and Thursday. We're not going to, you know, schedule it for the next day. You know, we're going to give everybody 2 or 3 week notice. I'd like to deal with it sooner than later, but we also are at the mercy of the state because ultimately they're in charge here.
But at the end of the day, it'll be a public meeting that any resident can come to.
Mhm.
It's not gonna be.
Yes, to the point that we get the select board.
I wouldn't see why not.
Should be.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It really has to be.
Hopefully it will be.
Well, no, it.
No, John,
must
it will be.
Yeah, it absolutely must be. Sure.
I was unaware of the other. ones.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Didn't know.
All right, on that note, and if you continue to have issues with the DOT, let me know and I'll call Janet Stevens and DOT will be there. Okay. So she has a way of getting things like that to happen. Right. The next item on the agenda, any other observations, comments? All right, moving on to the next item. Nurture and Nature, the Children's Center Court, up behind by Hutchinson there. So they want to hold a raffle. Here's the background on Nurture and Nature. They have been there for almost 30 years. The facility was originally built for the employees of the plant so that the kids could be taken care of while their parents were at work. Subsequently, it has become a private entity that is running Nurture and Nature. They have been working to extend their lease and or purchase the property and purchase some additional acreage there. And I think if you look, Hutchinson owns about 67 or 70 acres there. And that was not a viable option for them, for Hutchinson. It was viable for Nurture and Nature. They have since bought in Kensington what used to be that old diner restaurant on the corner there. And I can't think of the name of it now. The one that had that great metal statues out front. They bought that and they are going to need a sufficient amount of funds to rehab that building to make it work. To do so, they want to hold a raffle And they're going to limit the number of tickets. And the prizes are going to be a free year of childcare, which is a substantial amount of money. Or I believe, I could be mistaken, but I believe the number was a $10,000 first prize. They went to the state, as the email that we received, and then they got the runaround. Their attorney said they had to talk to this entity, and then they had to talk to this entity, and then back and forth. And so the bottom line is, we do not have a raffle application form. And I had a long conversation with Derek about this. City of Portsmouth has an application for either a tag day or a raffle. And that's something that I think we should probably adopt as a board, then we'll have it on file. This does not fall into the event category because a raffle is controlled by a separate RSA. Conversations with Derek, since we do not have the form, it will be suitable if we send them an email, should we approve this action in this case. But I think in the future, we will need to establish that form and set it so we're not kind of jumping through hoops and reinventing the wheel each time this transpires. Yeah, and if they are unacceptable, they are going to have to close the business, which will be a huge burden on a lot of families in the area. So that said, any comments, Kat? Mark? Okay. And that said, any comments from the folks sitting out here?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said the,
Nice and loud, please.
Debbie Lindsay, you said the property is on the corner of 107 and 108. Where Eastlands used to be?
No, it's down behind by Hutchinson, where they are now.
Right, but their new
It's
location.
in Kensington, whatever that restaurant was, and I can't remember the name of it.
Rest,
Yes.
It's Kensington Grocery. The
The diner there, it was a diner restaurant.
convenience store, and then they had a diner attached to it before you come up the hill to the center of town.
So that's where they're going to, and they want to rehab it. So in that case, any other comments, observations? In that case, I'll make a motion that we grant them the authority for, as far as the town is concerned, for the raffle. All in favor? All opposed? There'll be a nay, 3-0. Gonna hold off on the checks. We'll hold off on the July meeting dates. We'll hold off on the prior meeting minutes. So, moving forward, town hall masonry repair. So last Monday, or this Monday past, Bill Meserve and myself met with Brian to deal with the rain gardens on the southeast corner of town hall, where we have that huge mess back there. Establish what the perimeters are and set it up for putting the rain gardens in. And Brian's going to come in and do the work. While we were standing there, we began looking at the building, the town hall building. And there's a number of issues. One, the ivy is on the building on the south side, completely covering the building, curling up onto the roof, into the shingles, and also up onto the chimney. As we continue to look at the building, the front side, where we had the leakage up above the door here that Munch repaired, last fall, I think it was, where there's serious water damage was caused by the fact that the mortar is gone from the bricks coming off the roof. As we worked our way around to the building on the north side, not so much around the windows, but on the north side, as you're walking into Sue's office up there, the mortar is seriously gone, seriously eroded, seriously damaged. And then if we look at the east side, there's serious repair that needs to be done. Having dealt with a very reputable old school Exeter Mason, I wanted to get his 2 cents worth before I brought to the board. And he looked at that and he said, "You're fortunate that the damage has not gotten worse than it has. This building was exceedingly well built when it was put together." He was very impressed just at the workmanship and the skill. John, do you know when this was built? Do you know when this was built?
Here, it was built.
Yeah.
50. No,
But he was seriously impressed by the skill set and the diligence and the job they did laying the brick on this. And that's why it survived so well. But his emphasis was, you need to take care of this at your earliest possible opportunity, because if not, the damage is going to get to the point where the
1920.
almost 100 years, 4 years short, that this needs to be addressed in a most timely and expeditious manner. And it's not a need, I mean, it's not a want, this is a need. Now, I received an estimate from him, but I did not share this because I think if we're going to do this, I wanted to stress the fact that it's over $5,000, so we're going to require 3 bids. And I wanted to protect the integrity of what he sent me instead of it somehow slipping up and compromising the RFQ process. So this is what I received from him, and just a quick look at it. Have you seen it?
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at here. Okay. My suggestion and recommendation would be that we get a couple more bids on the process so we comply with the 3 bid option. And then we move forward and do this as expeditiously as possible. Comments from the board? Mark?
What pocket are we pulling this all from?
This will have to come from, so we have
So we have a number of buckets or pockets now, right?
the Town Hall Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund, which we voted on in March, and that has a funding of $20,000. Before the year, we had $1,854 and change in the maintenance account. And in the budget line items, we had $2,500. Budget line item of $2,500 has been exceeded already due to furnace maintenance and other issues on the town. So at this point, we have $21,563.27. And we can expect almost half of that will go to the cost of repairing the structural integrity and the bricks of the building.
Mhm.
So,
That would pull from any of these estimates that we're
yeah.
getting ready to talk about.
Yes. And that's,
Reorder the priorities.
and that's why I put this in front of the other ones,
Yeah.
because this is not a want, this is a need.
Mhm.
And so we've had comments from the board, anything from anybody sitting out front.
Thank you for pursuing it.
So, the other thing we have to do is we've got to get that ivy off. The ivy has to be dug out of the ground and it can't be allowed to come back because those tendrils get into the mortar and they just pull it off. And like on the south side, Mason was explaining to me what'll happen is that moisture will get in there, but the leaves will preclude the sun from sucking the moisture back out as it heats up and it just continues. And then in the wintertime, that moisture expands. And
That's great.
it's just
Comes out like powder.
So, we've got some options on removing the leaves that I haven't got a firm handle on yet, but may be able to save us some, coin in the process. But if that's the case, if no further comments, I'll make a motion. We proceed with getting 2 more estimates to move forward and resolve this issue. Have a second?
Yes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion carries 3-0. I will take that for action this week. So now, with that throat punch, which nobody expected, we move on to the next item. And the painting bid, even though it's number 6, logically, we should do the painting before we do the floors.
Mhm.
So I will move ahead and we'll talk about the painting options. Painting, we had bids came in on the 23rd. They closed on the 23rd. And we have 3 bids from gymnasium floors, Liberty Floor, and Renaissance Hardwood.
That's for the sanding.
Sanding, refinishing. And now one of the things that we did on this, and something to consider, is we said, okay, if we're going to do it, let's do the main room, let's do the entry, let's do the back office, the back meeting area, do the hallway and the stairs and do the whole kit. So something we might want to consider is putting another RFQ out and doing it in pieces to cut down the amount of over the costs it's going to take us to acquire it. So instead of taking it all off at once, if we do it in steps, which is not ideal, but sometimes that's the reality you have to deal with, then we can maybe move forward that way. So thoughts and considerations, Kathy?
I think breaking it up makes more sense, especially for budgeting purposes. Convenient or not. Then we can prioritize by area and then move in steps.
One of the things I'm concerned about, throwing this out before I kick it off to you, Mark, is we take care of the structural issues with the masonry concerns. And we still have 6 months left in the year. And so I think it's a good idea to maintain some liquidity in case we have a major malfunction in the town hall, even though the furnace has been brought up to speed. That's an easy one. Okay, so the furnace goes belly up, or we have something else that requires substantial investment, that we have the resources where we're not scrambling to cover expenses as we move forward.
Just a thought, thinking that some of the residents in town want to help. They do want to help. And perhaps if we sent out some kind of request or a softball out to say, if you would like to donate to the town and to a trust, there was some question of whether donations could be accepted under that one particular bucket. I remember Sue saying, I think that is the case, that you can, even though it was an older fund. So it's worth a broadcast out to people. If we bring in an extra $5,000 to $10,000, that's fantastic.
Let me talk to Derek about that, to make sure we cross the T's and dot the I's and there's no compromise of the legalities involved.
Yeah.
Because if I remember correctly, we are in the top 10 per capita income in the state. So there are resources out there. Now it's a matter of tapping them to see if they want to assist in addition to their tax bill. And I think that's a course of action worth exploring. Anything from anybody else? Anything from anybody out in the audience? I'm old man, you got to speak up.
Okay, Sid Lawrence. And from the perspective of the person who sets up the contra dances and realizing that we have a lot of tables, a lot of chairs, chair trolleys, and that sort of thing. And we make use of the back office room as well as the hallway in order to clear the space for dancing. If all the floors were to be done at the same time as described, the only space I'm imagining is the stage. And it does not appear that that would be an easy way to store it. I'm not sure if it would explain that space. Everything,
Store the chairs?
chairs, tables,
Okay.
there is enough stuff in the back office also that would have to be moved if you were to do all of the spaces, floor spaces on this floor inputs.
I was looking in under these doorways here, and I remember Catholic school, this is what we would do. It was about twice the size of this room. We'd put it in on these dollies and slide them in under the stage. Has that ever been looked at, to have a retrofitted dolly that just put?
The equipment for the contra dances is under one set of doors, and behind the other set of doors is, if you will, somebody else's. It is, I'm going to assume, some town, perhaps celebration committee, perhaps real town
Storage stuff.
stuff. I have to suggest that's not much of an option.
Yeah.
Maybe more space there.
Take a look.
Very small people who may not have strength enough to haul. But certainly the chair dollies They don't go into,
They don't go in there. Yeah. Okay.
it's just the space that accommodating the things that we have. As it was described, doing all the floors, which makes a lot of sense. Everything's got to go out.
Yeah. Juggling act. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing then is courses of action are, I'll liaise with Derek to see about options of receiving monies from donations from the town.
Yeah.
And where do we, stand on redoing the RFQs to do it in steps?
Mhm.
Is that something we want to look at? John?
I'm having a memory of a discussion this prior to voting last year and changing some of the language so that town can accept donations from residents for various purposes. And I believe that was put to vote. You might want to double check work from last year.
Mhm.
Do you recall some conversations about the fact that we had some monies that people wanted to add to, but the town didn't have the proper wording in place to do that, and so that I thought
It was part of the language. I think on some of the,
just don't recall if it was just for celebration or if it was
it was for certain funds.
several.
I believe it was mostly the celebration fund, wasn't it?
It may have been, but I just
I think that we probably speak to that.
conversation about
Yes.
some people being to give money, and I thought it had something to do with this building too, as far as maintenance. So
I'm remembering the same thing. I think that you're right. We just need to check the specifics of it.
I think we put it in both.
Let me, if it's amenable to the board, I'll run with that and come with Derek and do the research on it, so we get a definitive answer. And it's black and white, and there's no gray area of it, so we preclude the DRA or somebody else jumping ugly on us for doing something
Right.
that they find egregious. All right, so we'll move it forward on, that'll be their course of action. I'll get together with Derek on receiving monies from the citizens, and then we'll look into setting up a rebid or a redo of the RFQ and breaking it down into sections as far as getting the painting done and the floor done. We'll do both. We'll break them up into pieces.
Yeah.
Is the board amenable with that?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, I will put aside both the floors and the painting.
And the lighting was done, was that paid for by? Is it
Michael.
Michael.
yeah, is
I
it
thought Michael Sununu.
Yeah.
worthwhile to mention that, he paid for that out of pocket, which was,
One of the things we did receive, town oil bids. We got that information back, and the same supplier that we had this year, came in with the best rate for next year
for, I'm sorry,
for oil.
for oil. Yep.
And, that's Harry's Franconia fuel at $2.58.9 a gallon.
Oh.
Which is wicked cheap.
I might call him.
Yeah. So with that said, if everybody's copacetic, I will make a motion. We accept Harry's Franconia fuel at $2.58.9 a gallon.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Keisha, you got it for action. Thank you, ma'am. Next item, cemetery deeds. We have, a deed for cemetery plots here. In consideration of the requisite amount of monies by a Newfields family. The town hereby gives and conveys a lot in the Piscassic Cemetery and warrants said family, their heirs, and assigns forever title to said lot. It's pretty straightforward. Any issues? Plenty, so I'll make a motion. We accept this and sign it and move forward.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Got both?
Gotta make my signature a little nicer. It looked like Hobie's.
Good. All right, next item on the agenda, intent to cut. So we already talked about Hutchinson earlier. We're going to talk about them again. They have filed an intent to cut. They own almost 71 acres out down there in border town of Newfields, and they're going to cut on 43.5 acres. I've been through there and looked at it. They've got numerous trees marked there, and they've had their forester come in. What they're doing is culling the trees that need to be culled. There's no clear cutting going on. There's no roads putting in. It's just taking out the stuff that needs to be taken out. I had a conversation with the facilities manager the other day, and he assured me that it's not going to turn into a soccer field or anything open and clear cut and turn into a mess. In that case, I'll make a motion that we accept their intent to cut and we get that filed. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. All right, next option on the agenda is New Hampshire Forest Fire Warden appointment. So the candidate is Mr. Jeff Buxton. All right. Ray decided he didn't want to be a forest fire warden any longer. And so Mr. Buxton is willing to take care of that. The other wardens we have is Scott Buxton, Tom Connor, and Jeff Feenstra. So make a motion, we accept this.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Open items. We got a few here and then we'll move through these. 399 Piscassic. Brian's still waiting to get up there. He was slowing down on his work this past week with the heat. He's still going to get up there and clean that up and then we'll get it mowed. Badger Park was cut this week. All the limbs and everything were cut back. Brian's going to get in there with his chipper, and Louise Williams was kind enough to say, shoot the chips over the bank. That's fine with her. So once that's done, that'll be options to move forward on that. One of the things at Badger Park, that maple that is at the south end of Badger Park is in very bad shape. Some of the dead limbs were cut off of that. And at some point, I'd like to raise a discussion. I'm just going to touch on it briefly now. Remove that maple and those two ornamental cherries. Were they cherries? Two ornamental cherries there. They are in very bad shape. And so remove those, stump all three of them would be nice. Thoughts will be coming, moving forward on this. We put some nice maples in there and really dress that park up. One of the thought processes is veterans to take over that park and be responsible for the maintenance of it and ensure and for the upgrading of it. And there's already been some ideas kicked around. It's interesting. There's a nice rock back there without a plaque on it. It would be nice to move to the front and put a plaque on it and give the name of the park in the background of it. So people would see that immediately. And on the bell that was in the church, there's a plaque on that, but it's hidden up underneath. So it'd be nice to get that plaque bronzed and mounted where you could see it. Two of the corners of the Bell Pavilion are rotten. I talked to Munch the other day about looking at it and seeing about replacing those. They scabbed 2 repairs into the other corners. And Munch said he would take a look at it and see about getting that squared away. So, but I see great potential for that park, and I'm kind of looking forward to that happening because it's a sacred ground. All right, enough on that one. Postponed till another meeting is the Water Sewer Department lien documentation, paperwork, so we can move forward. We had a cruiser, police cruiser windshield fail. Again, that's the second time since it's been replaced. That's getting squared away this week, chief. Tomorrow. Okay. Got hit on the roof seam where it meets the glass, and I just don't think it's true anymore, is it? It's probably
3 years ago, we had a limb during a heavy wet snowstorm coming from the roof. So they fixed the roof and replaced the windshield, but this is the second time we replaced the windshield, just developed a crack in the last couple of days. Yesterday was 8 inches today. It's probably about, 16 to 18 inches. So there's something structural.
they just didn't get it. I just don't think they can get it true like it was with
It's old cars. We have $100. I'm sure, so
okay.
it's frustrating that a rock hitting in or something, but this is honestly probably an impression, moving the quality work that was done is just caused, seems like it's every 16 months.
So one of the things that's happened since then is we cut back in there, cleaned that all out. So the chances of anything falling down and really hitting one of the cruisers parked there has been minimized. The threat's been mitigated. Just an FYI, Primex will be coming through on 14 August, looking at the police department and the fire department. Basically, it's a safety survey and a site analysis, suggestions for improvements and things that can be done more better. And there's no ramifications as to the insurance. We checked on that prior, so they couldn't come in and say, okay, we did the safety survey, but, oh, you haven't done this, so your rates are going up. So we ensured that it's precluded, so that's not going to be an issue. Last week, in the last 10 days, we received an email that our ARPA filings and reporting requirements had all been met, and that is no longer an issue. We've got 2 more things to come up for bid. One is going to be the recycling and the refuse contract for this fall. Put that out for bid. And also we're going to put out the mowing and the landscaping for bid. That hasn't been up for bid since 2020. So we're going to put that in because we've got opportunities there to work both of those issues. And one thing, Catherine, you brought up was Senate Bill 213 in regards to potentially limiting the speech of town employees, if you'd like to address that.
Sure. And taking the opportunity to share it in a public forum, that it's been proposed at the state level that public employees suffer a misdemeanor charge if they participate in legal advocacy, even sharing factual and educational information about candidates or topics coming up, policies, procedures. It really limits the ability of town employees to be able to engage in both normal town business, but in your personal life outside, there's a really gray area. So, in terms of supporting particular candidates or speaking on particular issues or answering questions. And so I would strongly encourage that people reach out and oppose that bill to be passed. It's a direct conflict of the freedom of speech, in addition, in direct conflict with an RSA that supports public employees to be able to educate people on topics and answer questions, engaging in the normal course of their work. And so it's pretty alarming that this bill has gotten as far as it's gotten so far.
I would offer there's been some pretty alarming bills proposed by the legislature this
At every
entire
level.
session,
Absolutely.
from zoning, moving zoning control state level to impacting the retirement for law enforcement and firefighters to it's been a rather bizarre session, to say the least. So just an FYI on folks. July meeting dates. Let's see, it's the 24th. Tentatively 8th and 22nd.
And
And the 22nd, yeah, that's fine.
8th and the 22nd it is.
Okay.
And the last thing is our meeting minutes. Already had a chance to look at it. A couple corrections that I believe Keisha got squared away.
yeah,
Anything else anybody wants to add or throw in there? In that case, I'll make a motion. We accept the prior meeting minutes.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Get yet another X in the block. Catherine, you got anything else you want to throw out?
not this time.
Mark?
No.
Anybody in the audience? Going once? Going twice? 3 times. In that case, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, folks, for coming out. Thank you for your knowledge and input.